Great. So welcome to the third edition of Hevo's Learning Lab webinars. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're very glad to see everybody. So today we have Cade Winter. He's the Director of Sales Engineering at Hevo Data. He'll be taking us through some of the power features of the Hevo platform in detail. I'll let him give a bit more detailed introduction of himself. But some hygiene items, we'll be having the webinar for the first 30 minutes, and we'll have 10 minutes at the end to answer any kind of questions that you might have. So you can drop them at any time in the Q&A tab that you can see at the bottom of your screen. And we'll have all of them picked up at the end of the webinar. I think with that, I'll hand it over to Kate. Thanks everyone for joining once again. Kate, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Millie. And thank you all for joining. Super excited about this one. Like we are saying, this is going to be a feature spotlight of things that are in your Hevo account that you may not even know were available. Some of the awesome functionality that we provide to you out of the box and is right there at your fingertips. So super excited to hop into this. And we broke this down into a couple different subcategories. So extensibility, the other one is going to be flexibility and performance enhancers. And then at the end, give you a little preview of some things that we have on the roadmap. So very excited about that as well. Before I jump into this, again, a little bit about me. I'm Cade. I'm our Director of Sales Engineering here at Hevo. I have about, oh my gosh, at this point, just 12 years experience in the startup space, and I've spent pretty much the last 6 years in the data space. For 5 of that, I was early employee at Fivetran, and then more recently here at Hevo for about the last 7 months. So super excited about presenting this to you all today and all the things that we have coming down the pipeline. So get those questions in, and we'll address those there towards the end. But yeah, without further ado, we're going to hop in and talk about some of these features. So first feature spotlight is going to be extensibility. So hopping right in here, probably one of the biggest ones that we get from customers, especially based on something that Hevo's really good at, and that's going to be real-time and near real-time replication. Our Kafka architecture really allows us to facilitate this, and something that you can do with your existing pipelines is prioritize up to 25% of them to run in that near real-time manner. So what that means is for things like databases, that's going to be continuously pulling data from log-based sources. So whether it's binlog for MySQL or replication slot for Postgres, when you have those pipelines prioritized, instead of going back at a set frequency, we're going to be constantly pulling that data from the source so nothing ever gets missed, and then writing that to the destination. And on those write to the destination, whether that's BigQuery, Snowflake, Databricks, whatever it may be, those queries will be prioritized over anything else that may be running. So again, it's kind of like cutting in line for those really important sources that you have. Again, this is going to be really helpful for production instances, production databases, those mission critical tables that you have that you need to fuel your downstream BI and any sort of production workloads that you're doing. So incredible feature. It's right there in the UI for all of your pipelines. You'll see just a nice little arrow pointing up to prioritize that pipeline. All you got to do is click it. And again, you can prioritize up to 25% of your total pipelines that you have in your Hevo account. So again, amazing feature and awesome one that we wanted to start off with here. Next is external APIs. While Hevo does have a great library of over 150 native connectors, every now and then you run across something that we may not have a native connector for. Maybe it's an internal API or some really esoteric source that you use. So because there's never a shortage of SaaS applications in this world. So whether it's a SaaS application, an internal API, anything that does have an API, we can reach out and grab data from that using our REST API connector. So this doesn't require any code. You don't have to write a whole script or a function to go through and grab a bunch of data from the source and package it and ship it back to your ETL provider. What this does is really simple UI. You provide us some basic information. Is this a GET or a POST request, URL endpoint, how you're going to authenticate in the headers, and then a few optional parameters like query parameters, key value pairs, a date, JSON path, and so on. And you're ready to go. And again, it's a really powerful feature to extend Hevo's functionality to support, again, some of those other platforms that you have data in that we may not already have a native connector for. Next is workspaces. So again, low-key, really wonderful feature for collaborating across collaboration um, facility to facilitate collaboration. I'm sorry, across teams. So if you're a larger company and you have teams across different verticals or lines of business, you want to keep that all under one domain in your Hevo account, but maybe you don't want to mix and mingle those different pipelines and different destinations that you have. You can use workspaces to help facilitate that and keep it all under one, basically one house, but kind of sub rooms within that house. So you can see over there in the diagram how the flow of how that would work. And then you can control access to these workspaces using RBAC, so role-based access controllers. So you can determine what level of access a specific user has in a specific workspace. So again, really great for very large companies, companies that have, or maybe just a specific need. They need to divide things up amongst different departments or different use cases, and you want to keep your Hevo account really organized. Workspaces is an amazing way to do that. It's also super helpful if you're doing something like OEMing or maybe using an external analytics use case, something like ad agencies, where they have different customers that they maybe want to set up something all under their account within Hevo, but for each of their individual clients, they want a place to be able to keep that data, those pipelines, those destinations separate from anything else they may have in their book of business. So again, very powerful feature here. And along those same lines is multi-region support. So for each workspace that you have, Hevo, first of all, off the bat, will automatically select the nearest region to where you're currently located, but you can also add a different region for the different workspaces that you have. So if you are a global company and you have different data residency needs for the US or the EU, maybe India, you can select those different processing regions for your different workspaces. And then that way, that data never has to leave that region. It's same instance of Hevo running globally in these different regions. So really powerful feature here to allow for, again, data residency. There's more and more rules, it seems like, coming up with this, obviously GDPR and CCPA and stuff like that. So this allows you to facilitate and do that all through your Hevo account, just right out of the box. All right. So now we're going to move on to the feature spotlight of flexibility and performance enhancements. So the first one here is hybrid schema mapping. This is a big one. It's kind of like a blend of modern ELT, where everything is automated, done for you, made super easy, with kind of a tinge of flexibility and customization. So if you're used to ELT and having things automated, done for you as part of the modern data stack, great. That's how Hevo works out of the box. When you set up a source, whether that's a database or Google Sheets, whatever it may be, we're going to automatically map that schema to the destination schema for you. You don't have to do anything. There's no code involved. It's straightforward. It's easy to use. Works in seconds. Amazing. Every now and then, have you ever been in a situation where you're just like, well, I really don't want this data type to me map that way in Snowflake. I would like it to be a different data type. But you can't do that because your ELT provider tells you they know best and locks you into whatever that data type is that they selected. And in a lot of cases, that's going to be okay. You can do some work downstream. You can cast that. You can change the data type in your modeling layer and so on. But that can become tedious. And sometimes wouldn't it just be easier to just have that data type changed to what you want it to be when it lands in the destination? Awesome. You can do that with Hevo as well. So you have the ability to do manual mapping and go through and select the actual data types that ultimately for each column on the source side and for what actually gets landed in the destination. And you can do this per table. So if you just have one specific table out of your 300 SQL Server tables that you want to map, want it mapped a specific way, great, you can do that. So again, hybrid schema mapping, it's a good balance between obviously the automation that folks have come to expect from reliable ELT providers like Hevo, and just a tinge of customization so that you can still meet your data needs without a ton of downstream work from your team and be able to keep those robust pipelines up and running. Next is preload transformations, which is very similar to what I was just talking about with schema mapping. So preload transformations, seems like transformations in general just have mostly shifted to the warehouse, but every now and then you may have a very specific need to preload, transform some data before it actually makes it to your destination. This could be parsing out JSON. If you have a specific way that you want a JSON object, whether that's from Mongo or a JSON B column coming from Postgres, if you have a specific way that you want that mapped and landed in your destination, great, you can do that with Hevo. You can mask data. Again, another way that you can change data types here, as well as adding and removing fields and a lot of other functionality. So it's basically an open Python editor for you to be able to preload and pre-transform this data before it actually makes it to your destination. Another huge benefit to doing this is the compute all happens within Hevo. You're not having to spend extra compute downstream in your destination to be able to transform this data before it's actually loaded to, again, Snowflake, BigQuery, Redshift, wherever you're actually loading this data. So again, balancing out that automation with just a little bit of customization, some knobs and dials in there to be able to make things work exactly how you want to. Okay. Speaking of data transformations, how a lot of people are doing it today is doing this post-load in the destination. We support that as well. We have our own models, but we also support using dbt core. So dbt core integration, really straightforward. We integrate with your Git provider, whether that's GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, whatever it may be, wherever you're hosting your dbt project. And once you have that set up with Hevo, you configure your models, and then you select when you want those models executed downstream in your destination, whether you want that all together individually or triggered when data is loaded to a specific destination table by Hevo. You have that. So again, dbt has become pretty much commonplace, and this is the standard for transforming data in cloud data warehouses. It's specifically built for this, and a very powerful feature to be able to transform that data from the raw ingestion layer that folks like dbt or Hevo is landing in, and then dbt is capturing that, modeling it, and making it to be usable for you downstream for your BI layer. So again, our integration here with dbt allows you to do that with Hevo. And last but not least, when it comes to some of the feature functionality that we have, this is probably my favorite. It's a low-key feature, seems kind of simple, but honestly, it's very helpful and yeah, super useful. So it's reusable pipeline configuration. I don't know about you, if you've ever been setting up a database and you got to go through, it's tedious. You got to go through, you got to refill out you got to get the host. What was that password again? What was the port? What's all this configuration we have going on? Do we have networking set up for this? So it can be a little tedious to do that, especially if you're building out and architecting your accounts and your pipelines for the very first time. Well, you don't have to worry about that with Hevo. We have reusable pipeline configuration. So you can go in and basically just copy the same config you have, authentication or anything from an existing pipeline, import that over to a new one. So it's super awesome, very simple. You think it's very straightforward, but it comes in handy a lot. Again, personally, one of my favorite features. I use it a lot, but also hear customers say this over and over again. Just sometimes it's just the little things. It's just, hey, it's super easy. And so that's kind of the ethos of what we do here at Hevo. We're trying to make this stuff as easy as possible to meet all of your needs from a data perspective and ensure that you're getting clean, reliable data in your cloud data warehouse and making that, again, just as easy as possible. I wanted to hop in and do a really fast product demo and show you some of these features that that we have that I just talked about. So it's going to be super fast, and let me stop sharing and switch over. One moment. Okay. Okay, here we go. So here I am in the Hevo UI. And what I was just talking about, my favorite feature, the last one that I mentioned there, was the ability to create a pipeline from an existing pipeline. So I'm going to go to create here. This is going to be MySQL. I'll select MySQL. And all you have to do is, it just says copy right here, copy from existing source. So I'm going to copy that from MySQL test. I can give it a new pipeline name. So webinar, password, and then test and continue. Now I can select what data and objects I want to bring over. Maybe I'll deselect a few there. Again, this is already going to use the underlying configuration that I've set up with MySQL, but I could set this up to a different destination. I don't have to go to the same destination that the existing MySQL was set up to go to. So in this case, I am going to do Snowflake, and then give it a name there. Let's call it webinar. And here's the feature I was also talking about, auto mapping. So I can turn this on or off. So if I disable auto mapping, what this does is it'll take me to a screen where I can go through and select specific fields, the specific fields that I want mapped for my final pipeline. Click continue there. And there we go. So really straightforward, simple, easy feature, makes your life easy. And then, yeah, with the auto mapping, the ability to go in. So if I go to schema mapper here, what I'll do is you actually be able to go through, select, and map those specific columns and fields to exactly what you want. And then really quick, for the sake of time, I wanted to show you just this drop down right here. You may have missed it, but it's right there. It's available for you. So this is what we were talking about, the multi-region select. So you can determine what region this is going to be for source and destination. It's the whole workspace there. Each workspace will run in just one region, but I would say for the vast majority of use cases, that's how folks want that to be. They have data governments, data can't leave the EU or the US or whatever it may be. So it makes sense there to have that just for the one region.